Good evening, everyone. I am Majabella for the Planet Pathlings, and I am here to talk this week's subject, which is um, how do you witch? What is your craft, and how do I make it my unique path, and so on and so forth. I've been at this a very, very long time, and so I dabble in almost every every kind of skill path that you would consider witchcraft to be. Divination, herbalism, um, the practice of using the crystals, so basically earth magic, um, fire magic. I do have deities that I work with. Um, I do set circle, I do spell work, I do spellcraft, I write my own um, spells. I create my own unique blends of herbs, crystals, and oils and things that I am going to use. I can pretty much make magic from nothing. I can make magic from things. I can put forth very ceremonial type things, and then I can also put very informal um, rituals as well. I do try to observe the Sabbats. I do work with lunar cycles. I do work with planetary movements. I do work with psychology. I work I work all those different areas. But since this after watching Spin's video and seeing where her head was really at with the subject was more about the introduction to newer people on the path and their ability to move from the information that they may have gathered to the actual practice itself. Now, I practice my craft every single day. It is totally integrated in my life, and that means that there is nothing that I do that I don't look at it in the way of the witch versus um, just going about my life and then occasionally thinking about my magic. If it, it it flavors everything I do in the sense that when I say that, I don't mean that I cast a spell every day or anything like that. What I mean by that is how I interact with nature, how I interact with people, how I interact with my problems, how I go about um, creating my day, how I go about creating my week, how I plan even at work, how I think about my goals, how I I talk with my spirit all the time. I I'm in constant communication. I'm in constant. My thought processes cannot be separated from the fact that I'm a witch. Now, I can create out of nothing, and I can create out of stuff. I can be very formalized, or I can be very informal. I can do all of those kind of different ways depending on my need and where I'm at and what I have. I can improvise very easily, but I am someone who's been on my path for a lifetime. It isn't like I just started yesterday. But when I was in the beginning of my path, it was different. From early on, I just talked with spirit. I was in constant communication with spirit guide that was always with me, that I had the fortunate to have the gift to be able to hear that spirit. So talking to spirit was never an issue with me. My communication is ongoing, always has been, always will be, for as long as I can remember, as far back as I can remember. But that's not when I started to call myself a witch. That's something different that came along later. Um, I was born in a Christian family, and so therefore I went through that first. And I had to learn confidence enough to stand my ground when things didn't seem quite right. And so one of the first things that you have to do as a witch is be able to stand in confidence about what feels right to you. And that is developing your intuition. So that's one of the first skills that I learned, to walk a different path and to have the courage to walk that path, and um, to go in the face of what everybody else is telling you. Because I've learned to do that very early on, that was a very strong point in steering me down the unique path that I've walked. And the thing is that my path is unique, but everybody's path is unique. There is not any two people that do everything the same. Even if you were in a coven life, you will still have differences, because every moment that you have lived and breathed influences your path in some way, whether it was just a collection of information that you will use later. Every interaction that you have with a person that you come in contact with, every interaction you have with nature, every interaction with an animal, the crystals, everything that you do will influence your path. There's no way to separate yourself out from this way that we do things. I am not one that can sit in a pew and have somebody else tell me what I'm supposed to think, and do the interpretations for me, and tell me how this is what it means when it says this. Can't do that. Never have been able to do that. Get in trouble all the time because I don't do that. I have to listen to what you have to say, and but now I want to back it up myself. I want to go and I want to investigate. I want to look through things for myself. I want to come up with my own um, interpretation of the facts as I see them, as I study the different things. I know by intuition, and I use that basic skill set to really guide me through almost everything. But it takes a lot of confidence in yourself to trust that intuition. But that is one thing I can't stress enough on when you're first starting out. Then there was, as Spin said, the people that contact her and that they haven't set circle because they think they're going to do it wrong or this, that, or the other. As I started down the path of the type magic and the type theories that people like the Masonics or the Golden Dawn would use, it is so much about the inner work that you do first. So one of the things that you first learn to do is to meditate. Basically, it's a candle exercise. It's basically sit in a dark room and light a candle, and you sit there and you stare into the flame. It's a form of self-reflection. It's a form of trying to get you to start going within and to still yourself and quiet your mind. They start building on these exercises, and one of the things that they do is for you to be able to create a complete sphere around you. they start by laying the circle around that you place in your mind around yourself. And then after you get that concept that you're sitting within a circle that you yourself have placed yourself in, and they give you a exercise of, and they use the term God, but they don't necessarily mean God in only its masculine, but God as source energy. So the divine feminine and the divine masculine are all encompassed into that one source. And that one source is center is everywhere, and its circumference is nowhere. It is a never-ending circle. And you place yourself inside and you create a circle around you, and you imagine that you are with that source energy. You start to learn to feel and appreciate that energy. Now what they're going to do is they're going to take you into the idea that that circle is not a flat shape. That circle is actually a sphere. And that circle goes over you and also under you. And you are in the center of a perfect sphere. Now, with just working that exercise, you have created a sacred circle. The circle of protection around you and cutting yourself out of space and time. You start to go in and play with that. This is the method that I learned, and because of that, I always experimented with what I was being taught, because it came along with a path of how to incorporate it. So when you set an actual circle, when you take salt and water and you take the smoke from the earth and the air and the fire element, and you create that magic circle with all of those elements and you start pulling it together. So my big thing was, what do I do once I get in the circle? That was pieces of information that was left out of what I could get a hold of on the Masonic books and stuff like that at the time, way back when. This was in the early 70s to, uh, no, not early 70s, about mid to late 70s to early 80s. I had certain access, but I didn't have the full information. I had to play with this, to play with what I was going to do, once I started and created the circle. But the thing is, just create the circle and sit within it and commune with source energy. Just commune with the Lord and the Lady. Just commune with the divine feminine and the divine masculine. However you want to view that energy, you can just sit there and commune with God if that's the way that you see your practice. There is no right, there is no wrong. If a deity has chosen you, that's great. That deity can help guide you into what that they want you to do. And if you take the time to reflect, meditate in, the messages will come to you. It will tell you exactly how to proceed, what it wants, what it's asking for. It's also about learning to feel the energy, learning to build the energy, and learning to play with that energy. So the magic circle is it's kind of like a playpen. You can't do it wrong, and you get to experience the energy. You don't have to perform a spell. You don't have to do any of that. You could do a minor ritual, and that ritual just be you honor the divine feminine and the divine masculine that all life came from. Or you commune with whatever deities or however you see the energy of the universe and how you came to be. the story that is in your own mind, basically. And basically all that ritual is a ritual of gratitude, appreciation, um, and communion with that source energy, and learning to feel its presence, and learning to feel its power, and learning to call it forth. And then you can start actually, in the safety of your circle, playing with that energy. That's how I started. That's how I learned to build the energy. That's how I learned to understand when I had done things correctly and the energy was building. You can feel it. It is something that if you quiet yourself as you're doing this, you can feel it and you can play with it. Um, there's no right or wrong with that. At that point, there is no right or wrong. How can you do it wrong? It's just you learning to play. It's you learning to understand the energy that you're working with and how you're going to, all your inspiration will start to come from that energy that you're playing with. So you don't have to do spells. You don't have to do anything that takes you too out of your comfort zone. For the longest time, I didn't understand that I had always been creating spells because your spells start from your thought and your emotion. And every time you have thoughts and emotion, things can trigger in the outside world, and all of a sudden, from that that expression of emotion and thought, you'll start to see synchronicities. That's not a coincidence. That is spell work. The act of a witch is to take that very action and now create it deliberately so that you're not hitting and missing on the good and the bad and the ugly that you're creating anyway. You create from the day you're born, but once you learn, once you learn, um, I kind of want to say rules, but it's not necessarily rules. It's key pieces of information, data. Once you learn the data that you need, then you can start deliberately creating the life that you want, deliberately creating the spell that you want, versus having a reactionary life that you don't understand where all this stuff is coming from. When you're in a good mood and some good things start happening, or when you suddenly turn in a bad mood and then everything starts happening. And you think, what the hell is all this stuff happening? You are a magnet. You always have been a magnet. You always will be a magnet. But it is better, far better, to learn how to control that magnet and to start manipulating it into your favor versus harming yourself, even when you don't even realize you're harming yourself, and harming others at the same time too. When you don't realize your power, when you don't realize your actions create ripple effects into the universe, then you can put out just as much bad as you do good. So to me, the art of the craft, once you learn a certain point of knowledge, there is no going back. Because at that point you know that there's no point in whining about what bad is happening to you because somehow or another you've sent out a beacon signal to it. So you have to be mindful of what you send out. You have to be mindful of your thoughts. You have to be disciplined. It is definitely a path of learning discipline of yourself. And There are so many other things that you need to learn, but basically, my best advice to any young witchlings out there, any young passlings, however you want to put it, is that you need to study the key concepts. And once you know those key concepts, start looking within. Start analyzing yourself, your patterns, what happens. Journal. Um, Definitely journal your dreams, but also journal what's going on. Do an emotional journal. Say, whenever you have a strong emotion, and a strong opinion, a strong situation that happens, write that down. Try to make note of how long that emotion took over on you and how much time you actually concentrated on that idea that triggered the emotion. And then sit back and watch. Do an experiment with the things that you're already the life you're already living, and start journaling. You're going to start to see a correlation to after every strong episode of emotion and bad thoughts or good thoughts or those things that, experiences that just, are stronger than just your average day. And now sit back and watch in the next week or so and see how much stuff comes in that matches that same vibration. Start making notes of it. Start synchronizing what happens. And then you'll understand the importance that you're doing work every time you are breathing. If you're breathing, you're doing work. Whether you're in control of that work or it's in control of you is another thing. And that is the best message that I can give any young passlings out there. Don't be afraid to play because this is why you're on the path. And not everything has to be serious. And your deities have a light side as well as a serious side. And they don't smite you or slap you down because you're following them. It doesn't work that way. They don't do that. They don't have that kind of vested interest. Now go along and piss them completely off, it's a whole nother story. But chances are, if you piss them off, it's really probably something you've done that is attracting something that you sent out. Don't blame it on the deities either at times, because a lot of times it's just the fact that you had this thought and it equaled this over here and you got zammed with it. And to start taking personal accountability of your actions so that you can understand your part to play in everything that goes on in your life. Because you do have a part to play in it, and it's a significant one, far larger than you think. I study everything. I still study everything. I learn new things all the time. And I revisit things because it's things I forgot. So I always go back to old books. I flip through, I get in moods, and I do all of that because those things bring back other things that I do. There's this is a path of hard work. This is a path of self-awareness. This is a path of a lot of inner work that you need to do on yourself. It is not a path of the follower, it is the path of a leader. You have to forge your own path. You are the artist of your creation. You create everything that's in your life. You create everything that's coming at you. You create everything that you're seeing around you. And if you don't like something that you see around you, start working on changing it. But the change starts inside yourself before it can happen anywhere outside. And that's the biggest thing that I can tell you. I wanted to do and follow this different little vein that I went down because Spin and October took you down these other paths that they showed you um, the broader perspectives of things. So I just kind of wanted to go more in detail about don't be afraid to play. Don't be afraid to experience. When they're teaching you a magic circle, learn to do the magic circle. Do it yourself. Do it in your mind. Work it any way you can. All you have to do is sit inside that circle with a candle, or sit inside that circle with stones around you. Sit inside that circle with tarot cards. Sit inside that circle to do anything. That just gives you the idea of of how the power builds inside that circle. It allows you the chance to disperse the energy inside the circle when you're clearing it out. It allows you to commune with the other side, no matter what it is that you choose to commune with. Um, just have fun. Just have fun and practice. And if you can't get into that meditative state, then take yoga classes, because yoga classes are very good about taking you into a meditative state at the very end of every class. After they've exercised you, they put you into that. Use whatever is available to teach you new skills to use back in your own practice. To Yoga is not the path of a witch. It's not. But do witches do yoga? Yes, they do. Is there things that you can learn in yoga that you can apply into your practice? Yes, there are. There are a lot of different things that you can study out there that will relate back to teaching you how to do things at a greater skill level with your magic. Magic books are not the only place that you can find this information. And that's why I study everything. I study nutrition. I study science. I study physics. I study yoga. I study energy healing. I study all of these things because it amplifies my power in my practice. And that is what I can't stress enough about how I go about becoming a stronger witch. Um, and how I temper my own self into being able to keep that self-control. So that's all I have for this topic right now. And I hope y'all have a wonderful evening. And I'm sorry I got this up late. We just got in from Austin. So I am putting this up as fast as I can. Y'all have a wonderful week and blessed be.
Fly away with me. Release the ground below. There's everything to see.